acquisitions, basically a transaction lawyer for about 17 years now. And I'm going to just facilitate and support y'all through your mergers and acquisitions course. Okay, so yesterday we basically discussed and read through about the kinds of mergers, friendly and hostile mergers, and the advantages and disadvantages of mergers. So today I'm just going to discuss the last bit, which is basically a comparison between what is a friendly and a hostile merger, which we left off yesterday. We're going to discuss different synergies, basically different reasons, advantages and disadvantages of why companies or businesses are merged. And the next topic that I am going to touch upon today is demergers or a reverse merger. Okay, so basically the opposite of coming together, why companies break up. Or, like I said yesterday, it is easiest to think about a merger like a marriage of two companies. So, a demerger will be like a divorce of two companies. Anyway, so first I'm just going to touch upon the last point of the friendly and hostile mergers, which is the friendly and hostile mergers. What is the difference? So basically, one second, let me just try and share my screen. Okay. So the first one is a board approval. So a friendly merger is, so just to give you a little bit of a background, a friendly takeover or a friendly merger is a direct, a clean merger where prices are discussed, board approves, companies agree, and the merger goes through. A hostile takeover or a hostile merger is where the company that requires that the company basically that is the most needy, either the company that wants to take over or the company that needs the money or needs to be taken over for whatever reason, applies some tact or some strategy in order to get what they want. So that is the basic understanding of a hostile takeover. So the difference here is first the board approval. In a friendly or a straightforward takeover, as I'd like to call it, it is directly approved by the company's board of directors. In a hostile takeover, the merger or the takeover, at the first step, eventually it has to be approved, but as for compliance purposes and for MCA filings. But as a first step, it is usually rejected by the board, which is why when a friendly merger is rejected by the board, it turns hostile, which is why the hostility comes and tact and strategy has to be applied. Okay. The second step is negotiation. A friendly takeover has a very collaborative, a very easy, a very cooperative understanding between the acquirer and the target, and it's straightforward. The negotiations are easy, short, agreed upon from the discussion time, and when the definitive documents are being negotiated, it's pretty easy. As you can tell from the word go, a hostile takeover, negotiations are tough, they are aggressive, people don't agree, they go on for months, years even. Aggressive lawyers, investment bankers, founders all become very, very aggressive and try and bypass the board, try and give all crazy figures for their shares through their valuation certificates. So negotiations aren't really easy in a hostile takeover. In most, I've been in boardrooms in a couple of hostile takeovers where negotiations go on for years, and I've sat in a boardroom for 3 continuous days, and people just don't agree. So on whatever items, share price or rights of directors or the time of takeover, it can be anything. So a hostile takeover, generally negotiations are very, very long and tiresome. um, Offer. So in a friendly takeover, the negotiated price often is with the premium for is offered at a premium for the shareholders, which is, of course, again straightforward. It makes the shareholders trust the people taking over or the people coming in as investors. In a hostile takeover, it's basically unsolicited, it is unannounced, it is a lower price. It's not straightforward. So you're always like, the shareholders are always doubting the investors or the intention of the investors. Um, Shareholder influence. In a friendly takeover, a shareholder typically votes in line with the board recommendation. So, in a friendly takeover, because the shareholders and the board are in agreement and there is no real conflict, it's the decision is one and unanimous. So there's no real conflict. But in a hostile takeover, the acquirer usually goes directly to the shareholders, and if the shareholders agree, then there's something called a proxy fight, which is where they put in their proxy members for a unanimous vote, which automatically influences the board. So, like you can see again here, a shareholder influence in a hostile takeover, the acquirer again applies the proxy tact. And now proxy is a very it's what I mean. Proxy is literally the term that everybody uses in college. That if you're not there, somebody else can put in your attendance. But this right has been given to the board or to the company. In case somebody couldn't appear for a physical meeting for whatever reason, I can appoint a proxy to actually vote in place of me. But obviously, this has been misused, especially in the hostile takeover environment. To actually, it helps acquirers actually put in proxies for the shareholders to be able to get a unanimous vote in their favor. Then obviously that will influence the board. But proxies are becoming, I mean, not in the takeover environment, but in the general corporate board meeting lifestyle, proxies are being used less and less, because now the MCA, that's the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, which regulates companies, and the ROC, the Registrar of Companies, has permitted video conference meetings, and this has become a trend now. So proxies are very rarely used because you can actually attend a meeting from your phone, which is just giving you just giving you extra information, because even in the legal practice, litigation, now if a witness cannot be physically present in court, um, is in hospital, is in a different country, cannot travel, a link is actually sent to the witness to be able to appear on video conference to give his statement or deposition, as the case may be. So this is an advantage COVID brought with it. I look at it as an advantage. A lot of people in the legal system look at it as a disadvantage, but it's a huge advantage, because this entire proxy, I stand for you kind of situation can be eliminated. Moving on and getting back on track. Process. Obviously, a friendly takeover is way smoother, it's direct, everybody's in agreement, it's a happy party. A hostile takeover is complex, time consuming, and very disruptive. Often people don't agree on anything from the term sheet to the share price. to the conditions that are required to closing for months and months. So the process is exhausting for everybody, and most often because the process is taken so long and it's so time consuming, you know, everybody just gets tired, especially after a 3 4 year period of just strategizing people management changes that they just given, and they're like, just close this because it's gone on for so long. The next point is certainty. Obviously, friendly takeover has higher chances and certainty of completion. A hostile takeover, usually there are very few examples of hostile takeovers because most of them don't get completed because parties are not very successful in strategizing. And like I said, it's exhausting. It is time consuming, very, very lengthy conversations, discussions, multiple drafts of documents. So there are few examples of hostile takeovers if the parties can do the entire run. But in most cases, people just drop the deals because it gets really complex for everybody. Costs. So in a friendly takeover, the costs are high because obviously it's straightforward what is agreed. There's no strategizing. There is whatever is written in the documentation gets implemented. Everything is always taken care of in a takeover. And in hostile takeover, costs are lower because obviously that's one of the reasons why the transaction isn't going through, because nobody wants to do it the straight expensive way, the cleaner way. People are trying to cut corners and get the transaction through at any cost. The impact that a friendly takeover has is less disruptive, obviously, to the target company and the operations. A hostile takeover is way more disruptive because the company being acquired is always in a state of flux. The employees, the management, the finances are always wondering what is happening. And this, like I said, it's a really lengthy process. And every time the process starts, people get really anxious. And every time it stops, um, people are like, is the deal not happening? So it's very disruptive, very unsettling for the company being acquired. They never know where they are. Employees leave because there is such disbalance in the stability of the company. You see vendors leaving, you see employees leaving, you see customers leaving because they don't know how, they're not certain about the future of the company because it's so time consuming, right? Every 4 5 months again a conversation comes up. And in fact, I have been in such conversations for about the last 3 years, where every 3 4 months one of my clients is wants to be acquired but is having difficulty with the pricing. And everybody in the company, including me, who is their legal advisor, we get really unsettled to see if the company will be around and the management will be the same and will they continue to engage us. So it's a very natural human thing, but it's very unsettling for the clients. um, yeah, so those were like the three four I mean the 5 6 differences between a friendly takeover and a hostile takeover. And these are potentially why hostile takeovers never really um, go through. Also, the reason why they don't go through is because what happens is another reason that I forgot to mention, why, and it came to me when we were discussing how companies become very disruptive and unsettled when a hostile takeover is in the process. This actually makes the company weaker, and eventually they give in, saying that our company has lost so many customers, we are actually going to become a sick company that we might as well get taken over. So that is also a strategy that investors actually employ to, pull the strings so long that it actually exhausts the target company. Okay, we can move on to the next topic. That, yeah, just give me a minute. Yeah. So, is it better now? Okay.
Ma'am, before moving to next topic, can I ask one small question?
Of course, please.
Ma'am, you mentioned proxy fight, right? The proxies are basically a representative of shareholders, right? So,
That's right.
can you explain one of the scenario where proxy fight take place? Because I am not understand what proxy fight it is.
Sure, Tejas. So, a proxy fight is basically when I say, for example, I send you for a meeting in my place. Okay,
Oh, okay.
and I am the acquirer. Okay,
Okay.
I'm the acquirer, and I get my shareholder who I have on my side to send a representative of mine who will vote in my favor.
Hmm.
Okay, so if I do this out for 70 out of 100 shareholders, 70 people will be mine.
Okay, so one proxy for all 70 people.
No, no, no. There are, each person can send only one proxy.
Yeah, yeah.
So 70 proxies are sent
Hmm.
when actually all the shareholders have agreed to not go ahead. The original
Hmm.
shareholders have agreed not to go ahead with the takeover or the acquirer. But I
Hmm.
have somehow convinced some shareholders कि नहीं, uh, you be on my side. We will do something about the share price.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I get them to send a proxy who will vote in my favor.
Okay.
So at the shareholders meeting, there is a conflict between the 30 and the 70 because what was decided in the previous shareholders meeting is that we won't approve. Suddenly they come to another shareholders meeting and the 70 people have changed their mind.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
these meetings usually never actually come. Nothing comes out of it. That's why it's called a fight.
Yeah. And ma'am, how much percentage of voting is required for getting it acquired or getting our motion approved for this merger
Always,
and acquisition?
always the 51%.
Or ordinary resolution is okay for that?
Yeah,
Okay. I thought special, but okay.
it depends. It depends.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks.
Can I continue?
Yes, ma'am. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Now let's move on to the synergies that are involved or as I would like to call it, the benefits of mergers and acquisitions. Let me just get to that topic.
Ma'am, sorry, can I say something?
Yeah, sure, please.
Ma'am, actually, you just said कि ordinary resolution is enough, but I have a say like I have read somewhere that three-fourth of the shareholders and majority numbers is required to pass a resolution. Like the consent of the three-fourth of the members is required.
Yes, 100%. But when we are talking about percentage, three-fourth of the members is required, I agree. But Tejas's question was how many, what is the percentage? So when we are talking about percentage of shareholders in, say, a public company or very large shareholding, then we usually always take a 51%.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to synergies. I'm just going to use a simpler word here. Synergies basically refers to the benefits or the advantages that results from the combination of two or more entities, assets, or resources that are greater than the sum of their individual parts. In the context of business, mergers, acquisitions, synergies typically manifest as, so basically the synergies that manifest are what comes out of a merger.
Sharing the screen.
Not for this segment.
Okay, ma'am.
Would you want me to share it? Does that make things easier? I can share it if it makes things easier.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Yes,
Sure.
ma'am, we request you.
Okay, sure, sure. Just point it out if I'm not sharing the screen and you want me to share the screen, I would be happy to. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure, ma'am, thank you.
And if there's any extra reading material required, please let Ria know. I will send across extra reading material over the next few days because in yesterday's session, they requested for some extra reading material and I was happy to share it. Just give me a minute. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So today there will be a little bit of background noise because I'm actually all alone at home today, and I have a small toddler, and I have nobody at home. But this there won't be any disruption going forward. Um, okay, so operational synergies. These basically these occur when merged entities can streamline operations, reduce duplicate processes, and achieve cost savings. The examples are combining manufacturing facilities or sharing distribution networks that can lower production costs and improve efficiency. So, we are basically discussing the advantages or what culminates from a successful merger, how the companies benefit. So, we just discussed the operational synergies. The next one is financial synergies. Financial synergies involve combining financial resources and optimizing capital structures to reduce costs of capital, increase profitability, and improve overall financial performance. Examples include achieving economies of scale in purchasing, reducing borrowing costs through combined credit ratings, or accessing new resources of financing. So financial synergies basically is when the entire merger or the influx of money is actually helping cut down costs in some way, and it reduces debt and also taps into new sources of financing. For example, the company that is actually putting in money has a better credit rating and a borrowing history than the target company. Then that helps actually the credit of the target company because they have this backing and this history that comes along with the acquirer. The third is strategic synergies. Strategic synergies arise from combining complementary strengths such as market expertise, product portfolios, or geographic presence. Merging companies can leverage these synergies to expand market reach, enter new markets, diversify revenue streams, and enhance competitive positioning. So, this actually is when there is, for example, a company only has its market presence in India but wants to expand, for example, Asia Pac or globally, and gets acquired by a company that already has a global presence. So the company that gets acquired will automatically, through distribution, that will be the entire purpose of the acquisition, that the company being acquired can use the distribution channels of the acquirer to actually streamline its products into any country where the acquirer has presence. And this has been seen as a trend in the advertising industry. So the advertising industry is very, very big on strategic synergies to tap into markets globally. The Omnicom Publicis merger, which is the most recent um, advertising merger that took place. This was the reason that Omnicom Publicis merged to get and inroad into the Asia market and especially the India market because Publicis was very big in the India market. The fourth is technological synergies. These occur when merged entities combine their technological capabilities to innovate, develop new products or services, or improve existing offerings. Pooling technological resources can lead to efficiencies in research, development, accelerate time to market, and enhance a technological leadership. Now, this is like I feel that this is what we have seen in the last 2 or 3 years in India, where technology has come in contact with age-old industries, like for example, your edutech, your agri-tech, your health tech, your fintech. These are all companies that these are all examples of technological synergies where digital and agriculture or digital and education are being merged to actually create a larger market share. Cultural synergies. Cultural synergies involve aligning organizational structures, cultures, values, leadership styles to foster collaboration, improve employee morale, and enhance overall organizational effectiveness. A harmonious cultural integration can contribute to employee retention, productivity, and innovation with the merged entity. Now, this is largely seen in CA firms, service industries basically. CA firms, lawyers, CS firms, where somebody with a good leadership team, a good client base, merges with the smaller firm to give it some standing in the market, to improve the general health of the employees of the company, because CA, lawyers, our firms are all, our skill set is our human resource. So when a good leadership team comes in to not such a big firm and kind of takes them in, the firm's morale improves because they have a bigger client base, better billing, better salaries. So that is one example of cultural synergies, and I firmly believe, and I have seen the effectiveness of this in law firms, especially when there's something in law firms called it's called a best friends merger. Actually, before foreign law firms were allowed in India, we had something called a best friends merger. So a very big firm that is present globally called Linklaters, Skadden. They had best friend mergers with a couple of law firms in India, which gave them access to global client base, which allowed them to actually work in jurisdictions which they could have never tapped. So I'm a big fan of these cultural synergies. Synergies in business and mergers are about creating value that exceeds what each individual entity could achieve alone. They enable companies to achieve strategic objectives, enhance operational efficiency, drive growth, and ultimately maximize shareholder value through the combination of complementary resources and capabilities. Um, yeah, so that is what I wanted to discuss on the synergy section. Are there any questions before I move on to the demerger segment? Okay. Um, Second. Okay, have I been on mute like this whole time? Oh God, okay, I'm going to start the demerger section again. Okay, so basically demergers, we haven't, I mean, as far as everybody's concerned, y'all couldn't hear me at all where demergers were concerned, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to just redo this. So demergers are basically, like I said before, it is like the divorce of companies or when companies split for reasons that that didn't work out. The reasons initially that they thought that will help the company. The reasons why they merged, after the merger, they figured out that this was a mistake. So they decided to go their own ways. Another reason that it can happen is regulation. When regulations for the specific industry changes and the reason for the merger becomes null and void. So they usually the merger or another way that people call a demerger is a reverse merger. They occur when companies have previously merged, decide to separate into one or more entities. So they split and become two or more entities depending on how many entities merged and how many entities the regulation is actually going to affect. A demerger typically occurs for strategic reasons. A great example is given here. Companies may find that their initial merger did not achieve anticipated synergies or operational efficiencies. In such cases, they may opt to separate in order to refocus on their core businesses or pursue distinct strategic directions that better align with their respective goals. Alternatively, regulation or shift in market conditions may prompt a demerger, necessitating the divestiture of specific business units or assets. This streamlines operations, reduces complexity, and potentially enhances shareholder value by creating more specialized entities. So, from a legal and procedural perspective, demergers are complex. I feel more complex than mergers. They require planning. So, they require planning and also how the split is going to happen, how they are going to, how they're going to comply with regulation. It involves huge negotiations, shareholders, stakeholders, creditors, regulatory bodies. It's in fact sometimes easier to just wrap up the merged entity and create a new entity instead of going through a demerger process. And ensuring that all legal, procedural, and I feel regulation, aspects are taken care of. And demergers involve companies strategically reversing a previous merger to separate into one or more entities, whether driven by strategic realignment, regulatory obligations, or other factors. Demergers aim to optimize operational focus and create enhanced values for companies involved. So a demerger is actually it's a very complex transaction, and nowadays there are demerger specialization for lawyers. Because it is not, I mean, in my opinion and my experience, it's even more complex than a merger. Splitting something that has been married for a specific reason with influx of money and trajectories for the couple of years, shareholders, stakeholders banking on them, and dividing all of that for it to go back to how it was or create a new spectrum. What are the types of demergers? Demergers can be partial or complete. A partial demerger involves the separation of a specific part of a division or a division of a company into a new entity while the original company continues to exist. So, this is the easier demerger where only a certain unit is pulled out of the merged entity. The whole entity is not being demerged, it is only a specific unit. The key characteristics are, like, for example, of a very big FMCG, for a very big FMCG line, if a particular, for example, a particular, like the Johnson saw some, almost went through that for a particular line where a certain chemical became illegal to use and was banned in baby talcum powder. They eventually did away with that particular chemical, but for a long time they were actually thinking of demerging just that unit, uh, because they couldn't use that chemical in baby talcum powder, baby powder. So that is simpler to do than actually demerge an entire entity. What are the key characteristics of a partial merger? Division of assets, specific assets, liabilities, and operations related to the particular business are transferred to the newly formed entity. Second, ownership structure. Shareholders of the original company may receive shares in the new entity in proportion to their holdings in the original company. Third, operational independence. The newly formed entity operates independently, focusing on its specific business operations, strategic goals, and market opportunities. Fourth, strategic focus. Partial demergers are often used to enhance operational focus, streamline business processes, or unlock shareholder value by highlighting the potential of the separated business unit. Purpose for a partial demerger. The purpose for a partial demerger is strategic realignment. Now, like I gave you all the example of the baby talcum powder unit of Johnson Johnson. Companies may opt for a partial demerger to refocus on core business activities, divest non-core assets, or respond to changing market conditions. Second, regulatory compliance. Partial demergers can help companies comply with regulatory requirements or industry specific regulations that mandate separation of certain business units or operations. Financial optimization. By separating certain business units, companies can improve financial performance, allocate resources more efficiently, and enhance overall profitability. For example, a technology company might conduct a partial demerger to separate its software development business into a new entity focused exclusively on software products and services, allowing the parent company to concentrate on hardware manufacturing. That's a great example because a lot of the old companies, when things weren't so specialized, had both the operations and the functioning under one parent company. And it makes sense with how broad the software company and the regulations that the software companies have, especially in the United States, for it to demerge and form a separate company and have the parent company function independently without all those regulations and those glitches. So we just finished discussing what a partial demerger is, way more simpler than a complete demerger. Now moving on to what a complete demerger is. A complete demerger, also known as a total demerger or a full demerger, involves the separation of an entire company or all significant parts of a company into one or more new entities. The key characteristic, there are four of them. One, transfer of entire businesses. All assets, liabilities, and operations of the original company are transferred to a newly formed entity. Shareholders' impact. Shareholders of the original company typically receive shares in each new entity in proportion to their shareholding in the original company. Independence of entities. Each new entity operates independently as a separate legal entity with its own management, operations, and strategic direction. Legal and regulatory requirements. Complete demergers require compliance with legal and regulatory framework governing corporate restructuring, including approvals from shareholders, creditors, and regulatory authorities. The reason or the purpose why complete mergers, are undertaken. Strategic focus. Companies may opt for a complete demerger to create more focused and specialized entities, each with a distinct market focus or strategic objective. Value creation. By separating different businesses into standalone entities, companies aim to unlock shareholder value, improve operational efficiencies, and enhance competitive advantages in specific markets. Corporate simplification. Complete demergers simplify corporate structures, corporate governance, reduce complexity, and enable more efficient management of business operations and resources. Example, a diversified conglomerate might undergo a complete demerger to separate its retail, manufacturing, and financial services division into independent entities, allowing each to pursue growth opportunities tailored to their respective industries. Any questions? Okay, I'm moving on. Let me just see. Okay, so I'm going to touch upon the methods of the demerger and I'm going to end the session there. Okay. Demergers can take various forms, each tailored to specific needs. Common types of demergers. One is a spin-off. A spin-off occurs when a parent company creates a new independent company by transferring some of its assets, divisions or subsidiaries to the new entity. The mechanism that is used for a spin-off is where shareholders of the parent company receive shares of the spin-off company in proportion to their holdings in the parent company. That is the most common way of a demerger, actually, a spin-off. The purpose,
Hello. Hello.
yeah.
Ma'am, actually, I was wanting to ask one question. Ma'am, when a demerger is taking place, is it always with the motive that the entities want to function independently, or it could be when one entity is failing to function?
Yeah, it can be when one entity is failing to function for a reason so a merger basically takes place to help the entity function. Now, when a particular business division is failing to function because of that merger, it can be a reason to demerge.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah. The purpose of a spin-off is basically spin-offs are often used to separate a subsidiary or a business unit that operates in a different industry or has distinct strategic objectives. This allows each entity to focus more effectively on its specific business model and growth opportunities. Spin-offs can also unlock shareholder value by highlighting the value of the separated entity separately. The second one is a split up. The split up involves dividing a single company into two or more independent entities, each of which operates independently after the demerger. Just give me a minute, please. Yeah. So split up typically involves dividing a single company into two or more independent entities, each of which operates independently after the demerger. Mechanism: the original company's assets, liabilities, and operations are divided amongst the newly created entities. The purpose: split ups are typically undertaken to streamline operations, improve operational focus, or respond to changing market dynamics by separating different entities or different businesses into standalone entities. Companies can enhance management focus, improve efficiencies, and better align each entity's strategic directions with market opportunities. Sell-offs. A sell-off, also known as a divestiture, involves selling a subsidiary or a business unit or specific assets to another company or third party. Mechanism. Selling company transfers ownership of the subsidiary or assets to the buyer in exchange for cash, stock, or other forms of consideration. The purpose: sell offs are often driven by strategic realignment, financial restructuring, or regulatory requirements. Companies may divest non core assets or underperforming businesses to streamline operations, reduce debt, or generate funds for reinvestment in core areas. Sell offs can also help companies focus on their core competencies and improve overall profitability. Equity carve out. An equity carve out involves the parent company selling a portion of its ownership in a subsidiary through an IPO or direct sale of shares to investors. The subsidiary becomes a separate publicly traded entity, which the parent company retaining a significant ownership stake. The purpose: equity carve outs allow companies to realize the value of a subsidiary while maintaining strategic control. They can raise capital for the subsidiary's growth, enhance its visibility in the market, and unlock shareholder value by providing the investors with direct ownership in the subsidiary's business. A split off. A split off occurs when shareholders of the parent company have the option to exchange their shares for shares in one of the spun off entities. The mechanism used is where shareholders can choose to exchange their shares in the parent company for the shares in the new entity at a predetermined ratio, but that's always negotiable. Purpose: the split off provides shareholders with the flexibility to choose between different investment opportunities within the same corporate structure. They can realign their investment preferences with specific business segments or growth prospects offered by the spun off entity. Split offs also enable companies to streamline operations and allocate resources more efficiently based on market demand and strategic priorities. Each type of demerger involves unique legal, financial, and operational considerations. Legal advisors play a critical role in structuring and executing demergers, ensuring compliance with regulatory requirements, protecting IPR, and optimizing financial and strategic outcomes for all stakeholders involved. By carefully evaluating the objectives and implications of each type of demerger, companies can effectively navigate complex transactions and achieve their long term growth and profitability goals. So, any questions? That's what I have for today.
Ma'am, can you please explain IPO as well as equity carve-outs?
We will be, equity carve outs and IPOs will be touched at a later stage. I'm not going to touch it today because it is just part of a demerger and it is another complex topic which I will be touching later on in the duration, of course.
Ma'am,
Okay.
can you please explain the key difference between the split up and the first one was, I think, spin off?
Spin off. Do you want me to
The key
run through that
difference.
again?
Yeah, like what I have understood is that the spin-off is mainly in the case of a parent and a subsidiary, right?
That's right.
And the split up is like a a single company is getting demerged into two or more independent entities, right? It is This is the key difference between these two terms, right?
Yes. One, a subsidiary is leaving. Its parent, and one is the parent is getting divided into different segments for operational convenience.
Okay, all right. Ma'am, the second query is what is the key difference between the split up and the split off?
The split up and the split off. So a split off is what I just told you, a single company into two or more independent entities
Right.
for operational convenience. A split off occurs when shareholders of the parent company exchange their shares in a spun off entity. So the money that they are putting into one company, the parent company, they are actually putting into the demerged company,
Okay, all right.
because it's the shareholders that make up the ownership of a company essentially.
All right.
Ma'am,
Thank
I
you.
did not understand this part split off.
Sorry?
Ma'am, I did not understand this part split off. Can you explain again?
Split off is basically shareholders of a parent entity, one entity, exchange their shares for the demerged entity. So if there is a company A that splits up, okay, into B, C, and D, the shareholders of A will exchange their shares for shareholding in B, which means the money that goes into A will now be going into B.
Okay. And ma'am, what about C and D?
Yeah, I just gave you an example, but C and D also. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Ma'am, the question is not actually directed to you. I just wanted to know that the material that will be posted or already has been posted, it requires some. I'm unable to access it, so I actually wanted to ask the admin. I have. Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay. That was all. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to sign off from this. I have to get on to another call, another work call, but I will see you all on Monday. And
Ma'am,
meanwhile, if there's
can you suggest a
anything,
book
please,
for... Hello. Ma'am, can you suggest a book for M&A? Like,
I will
in-
definitely. I am sending material to Ria and the team. I will suggest books, and y'all can take them from home.
thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.